What's up, folks? So Michael Stephenson here once again with another almost, I hate to say that it's an introduction, but I feel like I should probably get this out of the way, especially if any of you saw the entertainment introduction. And I promise you that I actually am going to finally dig into the entertainment industry and talk about the problems that it may or may not have. But again, I feel like there is one more, maybe two more videos before I get to any of that stuff. And so obviously, in my intro video to entertainment specifically, I talked about the fact that I was in a crash last year, and it sort of made me reevaluate whether I wanted to put more, I guess, negativity out into the world, or at least critique things in a harsh way that I was going to critique them. And I wanted to try to be positive. Although, again, I have to be honest about things too. But in that video, I also talked about how I was potentially almost ready to give up. And I hate to say it, but that sentiment really has not changed. And in fact, it's probably become even stronger. I have given myself this year, roughly about 6 months from now, to see if I can get like 100,000 sales of my books, of my writings, before potentially giving up. And if I do give up, then the videos are definitely going to change and they're going to go super hard. But again, the question is always, especially when someone is about to potentially give up on their dream, on the thing that they always wanted to do, is what exactly made you come to that conclusion, right? And to first say that it isn't an easy thing to come to is almost an understatement. So I wanted to share with you guys a little bit of why I came to this conclusion. So the first thing that I was suffering from is that basically there were a few things and there have been a few things that were really kind of soul crushing to me. So one of the first things is my health. I have, like I mentioned in other videos, I have back issues that are like severe. It's more than just pain. It's a literal structural issue. So I can't do a lot of things, but recently, it's been more than just the back pain, the back issues. Recently, in like the last couple of years or so, I have realized that I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's the fact that I have almost no social life. Like I have a very limited social life now, or if I'm not getting enough sleep, or I'm not eating right, which is weird because I'm vegan most of the year, or what's going on, or if it's just that my body is wearing down, having to constantly put out cortisol for my back. But I've noticed that my memory is not what it used to be. So I used to actually have, for a while, a photographic memory. Like I could still explain in fairly graphic detail regular days in my life from like 20 years ago, like when I was a kid, when I was a little kid and stuff, right? And I wanted to more than anything be an actor, and then a director, and then a producer, and not necessarily so much a writer. But I realized that even in both acting and writing, obviously you need a huge, a fantastic level of memory. Now, again, I understand that there are now more than ever a lot more actors and actresses that are essentially going like the Johnny Depp route, in which they'll have like an earpiece in their ear where somebody is literally telling them the lines of dialogue that they need to do so that they don't have to remember the script. And I'm like, I mean, that's a way to do it, I guess. But it's very frustrating to understand that, or to realize that for whatever reason, you don't seem to be as sharp as you once were. And maybe it's just me. Like maybe it's just me having some sort of developing some new level of anxiety. I've never been an anxious person before, but maybe it is me developing some new level of anxiety just because I'm worried about things. I don't know, but it feels like my memory is worse than it was before, and I can't figure out why. I just can't. I'm literally oftentimes now dropping words and forgetting words. Now, mind you, granted, they are oftentimes bigger words, which I'm like, oh man, I wish that I had thought of that when I was talking to this person or when I was writing this thing or whatever. And for writing, obviously, you can go back and you can correct yourself and you can do edits and all this other stuff. But when you're in the live moment, it's hard to have an idea in your mind and then drop the idea, because I also used to be incredibly good at improv and I haven't done it in years. So I don't know if I'm good at it anymore, but it is scary. Then also the fact that, dementia slash Alzheimer's, just mental, see, I'm doing it right now. Mental degradation kind of runs in my family. So my uncle, he had a stroke a couple of years back, but even before his stroke, he was having problems with his memory to where it's like, he can hardly remember anything. You have to tell him things over and over and over and over and over again in order for him to get it. He currently lives with his son, my cousin, and sometimes they'll just find him out in the park. Now, granted, yes, he's, a baby boomer, so he's a man of a certain age, but he's been having this type of stuff since he was like at least in his 50s, like his early 50s, maybe even before that. I don't know. But then my grandfather, when I was really little, he also came to stay with us pretty much after my grandma died. And so he also had memory loss. He had dementia, and I think it progressed to Alzheimer's at some point. And it's very scary. Like there are certain things that are incredibly scary in this life, and most of them, for me, like I'm not a very fearful and frightened person, but most of those things for me are things that have to do with your health, and especially getting older as you age, how your health diminishes. And just the fact that I feel like I'm forgetting one or two words here and there, or I will come into a room and potentially forget like why I came into that room. Maybe it's average at my age. I'm over 30, but I don't know. Speaking of age, that's number two. That was the second reason as to why. So again, for a writer, the age doesn't matter, right? You can be George R.R. Martin and still be putting out books or still have fans waiting for your next novel at, 80 something years old, or you could be, God, what is her name? I don't think I even knew her name, but she's the writer behind the Divergent series. She started literally as like a teenager in 20 or young 20 something, and she got her first book published. Which is amazing. It's fantastic. Claps for her. It doesn't matter the age. But for actors and actresses, I hate to say it, but if you look at it, not only do the majority of actors and actresses, not only do they have to essentially start early or get a foot in the door before the age of 30, but most of the actors that we have who do or who did start late, like Harrison Ford, for instance, they tend to not be, how do I put this? Like most of them, for starters, it's harder to become a legitimate star. And as I said, I'm going to talk about the ego of an artist later on, but it's like, do I want to be a star? Of course. I'm not even going to lie about that and try to embrace some sort of fake humility and say, oh, I just want to work and it's okay. Like, no, I want to be a star. Yes. But also, again, not going to embrace fake humility. I'm also not going to shy away from the fact that, do I want to win the big awards? Yes, even though they may not seem to matter as much to people. Of course I want to win the big awards. And most of the time, if you are a star, but you star in stuff over the age of 30, like you start then, it is incredibly much more difficult to actually be considered for those top awards. It just is. Like, has Harrison Ford ever won an Oscar? I don't think so. And if he has, I can't remember in what. It's hard because it's like, I don't know if he would ever be considered for one, to be honest with you. Has he turned in some phenomenal performances? In my opinion, yes. He's turned in quite a few good performances. But again, it's harder when you're older, even in, like, it's just harder. It just is. And it's like, I don't know. I just don't know if I have the stamina for that, if I could somehow, but most importantly, I don't know if I have the luck for that, because you have to be really, really lucky. And I don't know. In some ways, I really hope that with the poor health that I've had, I hope that I've exhausted all of the bad luck that I could possibly ever have in my life. And so then for the rest of my life, however long it is, I have only good luck and like everything comes up roses for me all the time. But that age thing, I don't know. Age is oftentimes a factor in Hollywood, as much as we want to think that it's not. It's a factor for men and women. Speaking of age, I also have to talk about the age of people around me. Everybody in my life is also now over a certain age. They're all the my cousins and the kids and stuff that I grew up with. We're now all over 30. Like, when we're looking at it, our parents are also aging, and they are starting to have to rely on us more and more to do things that adults in their prime do. And not only do I not have the health for that, but it's like I'm still here pursuing something which of course may not ever happen. Our society in general, but it's definitely any sort of like a parental role, whether it's an actual parent or a grandparent or an aunt or uncle, when they look at someone who seems to have been so incredibly smart, but they're not living up to their potential. Obviously, there's got to be something in there to where it's like, like what are you doing with your life? You're taking small dead end jobs that pay almost pennies on the dollar because you don't want to tie yourself down to a job that could turn into a more important job that could turn into a career simply because it's so far away from what you want to do. It's like, I know that we don't seem to, I guess, talk about it in our culture enough or pretty much at all, but there is that want, that desire in, I think, most of us to want to not please our parents, but to have, but to I guess, have our parents and other people who believe in us, to have them actually see us do well. And I was just reading an article about Pedro Pascal. I think that's how you pronounce his name, Pascal or Pascal. He was just talking about how, he's a man of a certain age. He's over 40. And one of his biggest heartaches in his life is the fact that his mother didn't live to see him actually become successful. He was a struggling actor for a very long time. I think it was like 15 years before he got Game of Thrones or before. I don't know which came first, whether it was Game of Thrones or Narcos, but those two things are what really put him on the map as somebody to look for. And now he's potentially one of the biggest TV stars in the world. I would say he is the biggest TV star in the world. He's starring both in The Mandalorian and in The Last of Us. He's essentially carved out his own genre of old or middle-aged dude leading a child, which is fantastic. I wish he would have more things like that. They should do a live action Rugrats where he somehow takes over for Tommy. I mean, the whole genre, he's built a whole genre around it. He was just saying, like, yeah, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking because his mom will never see him succeed. And I hate to say it, but oftentimes award shows, stuff like that, like, yeah, you may have kids and you may bring your kids to the award show or something like that, but it's never for them because your kids very rarely think that you are super cool or something like that. But it's your parents. It's your parents. And of course, this is why I actually love when stars, when they bring their parents to like these big award shows. Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, they each brought their moms to, I want to say, the Oscars, to at least one of the Oscars. It's kind of a cool thing because it's really your parents that will always be far more in awe of both you and of what they did to help you accomplish whatever thing you've accomplished. That the award shows are really, yeah, they're for the individual winning and stuff, but they're also definitely for the parents too. Like I remember seeing Zendaya winning her first Emmy, and it's like she's sitting there, and both her parents and her dad had the I think the black leather or pleather pants on. I was like, oh my God, no, he didn't. But it was such a wonderful thing because it was like, yeah, like that's our baby, that's her, and she did it. I would love to have that. But, as I age and as how older people are, they get sick, they get ill. There's all sorts of things and complications that can happen. And it's just like, I don't know if I can live with the heartache that Pedro Pascal has. I don't know. And so now we get to the last thing, but this is actually the most important thing because this was the thing that literally just had me, I kind of checked out. It happened both last year in 2022 as well as in 2021. And each time I checked out for no less than about 2 months after. I just didn't write anything. Like, I still recorded some ideas and stuff that I had for stories and some dialogue that would pop into my head, but I didn't officially write anything because it was so demoralizing. So as you guys can tell, I am Black. I'm a African-American man. And I'm going to talk about this probably more in a video that I'll do maybe on the publishing industry and specifically the things wrong with it, but and how that feeds into the bigger entertainment industry. But as a Black writer, as a Black millennial male writer, one of the things that I have seen and that I have noted so far in almost all book circles is that if you look around, there's literally almost no, and like, trust me when I say this, this is a huge thing. There's literally almost no Black male writers of the millennial age group that are represented in the market, like almost none. And there certainly aren't any that you can think of. I hate to say it, but even our Black bookish people and people that I follow like online and Instagram and stuff like that, when they bring up Black books that you should look at and read and blah, 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 discuss, almost always they fall back on two. That is Ta-Nehisi Coates. He's a Gen Xer. I think he was born in the 70s. And as of late, it has been James Baldwin, which, I mean, he's long been dead. And I'm like, well, I remember a thing online on Twitter, which, I feel like if you stay on Twitter long enough, you'll eventually get into some trouble yourself. And the tag was Black female authors. One of the things is that it was sort of like a venting kind of hashtag where, they vent their frustrations. And of course, one of their frustrations was that they are underrepresented in the market. And all I just said was that, yeah, Black men are underrepresented too. Instead of, somebody saying, yeah, that's true, I got backlash because I guess they figured that I was trying to take over their hashtag. And so, I backed down. I said, well, okay, you're right. I apologize, whatever. But then for the last 2 years, really for longer than this, because again, I've had plenty of books that feature Black characters prominently, where Black characters are the main character. I have a cultural appropriation series, Bland, Blend, and Blind. All of them feature Black characters. I've done Black horror. I've done Black action / thriller, Black psychological. I've had plenty of stories with Black people in them. And all I was asking, and again, I know that no other Black person owes me anything, right? Just like I don't owe another Black person anything. Even though we want to be a community, we don't owe each other things like that. So I'm not complaining on that front, but I am expressing at least my feelings about it. And my feeling was that I reached out it was a book that I was publishing, self-publishing last year. And I reached out to as many, as I oftentimes do, I reached out to as many reviewers who I thought would review a book in that particular category. I reached out to as many of them as I possibly could, as many of Black reviewers, Black book bloggers, I'm getting tongue-tied, Black book bloggers, Black bookstagrammers, Black book talkers, Black pretty much anything. And I came up with a list of not only names that I had previously tried to get to, but other names that were new to me, that had just started channels, that were rising in popularity, people who were on YouTube, etc., etc. I reached out to literally a list of over 500 people. And I only got 4 responses and 1 Black person to read the book. That was probably the most demoralizing thing that I think because again, I've been doing this for a long time, y'all. I've been doing this for quite a long time already. That was probably the most demoralizing thing that I think I'd ever felt before. That was even more demoralizing than being rejected by Black book agents and managers and things of that nature, which I'll probably do another video because I'm no longer taking any sort of meetings or anything with book managers. I've decided that, or book agents, I've decided that I'm no longer going to pursue that at all. I can take a bad review, right? So I can take it if somebody said, oh, listen, read your book and it's not up to snuff for me, or it's not interesting enough, or it's not this enough, or blah blah blah. I can take that. And yeah, I can even take somebody coming in and saying, yeah, you know what, I read your pitch for the review, and I don't think it'll be for me. But what I find hard is the no is like essentially the no response rejection, which you get a lot of, but still it just felt, I don't know, it just felt weird. It felt so disheartening to me and so demoralizing to me, especially because, I'm looking at all these black book bloggers and I'm actually reading through their reviews of these books and why they love them. And then I'm looking at all these black bookstagrammers and I'm interacting, or at least trying to interact with them and with their posts and commenting on their stuff. And I'm looking at, black booktubers, and I'm looking at all the books and things that they're reviewing, and like putting some on my list and marking some off, blah blah blah, and all this stuff. And then of course I'm also seeing, like, every couple of weeks or every couple of months, or at least every single Black History Month, I'm seeing them come out with stuff, with videos and with blog posts talking about how, yeah, people need to read more black books, and the publishing industry needs more black books, and the publishing industry gatekeeps black writers, and all of these things. And then I'm constantly making comments like, listen, y'all understand though that for almost every single other thing as far as entertainment goes that black people have been involved with, for the most part, we've almost always had to do it to where we did it indie first. We did it on our own, by ourselves, using whatever technology we had at hand. And that's the way we did it until the industry came calling to us. But it's like, when I'm looking at the black bloggers and the black YouTubers and all them, and all these people who are getting big or who are having these platforms, they're constantly yelling to the professional publishers that, oh, you guys need more black books. And I'm like, well, it felt like, and this is something that I was going to definitely speak on in the entertainment area of my videos, but it felt like, it felt essentially like the black community was, and still is to some extent, ignoring black indie writers, right? Like, they're ignoring us and constantly yelling at the publishers that, well, you guys need to publish more black books. And it's like, well, they might do that if you guys paid attention to the indie writers. Like, I don't know. It was just so depressing. It was so depressing to me, to where I just couldn't do anything. I remember reading, and I also interacted on Instagram with a post that was talking about this as well. I remember reading somewhere that there was another black writer, and she was having trouble gaining an audience as well to read her stuff, to review it and all this stuff. And so she eventually decided, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change my main character, my protagonist. And she changed the character from a black person, I think it was a black woman, to a white woman. And boom, suddenly she had readers. Like, she had people that actually cared about her stuff. And no, it was not because, the white people came a-flocking, because I've actually been able to get more white reviewers than I've ever had black, or frankly any other person of color kind of reviewer. And I just like, it constantly goes back to that argument that we as minorities have had for years, that we don't support other minorities. And I just hated it. I can't believe I'm saying this, because in a weird way, I realized that I kind of had to be done. I had to be done, at least with that. So it's like, just like I'm no longer pursuing any book agents, I'm no longer pursuing any sort of black reviewers or black readers or any of that for any of my writings. I just can't do it. It's too heartbreaking. And I feel like there's almost no sense of acknowledgement of that process, that this is a very stressful, very emotional process to begin with. And so, I don't know, but like I said, they don't owe me anything. They don't owe any other black writer or anybody of color anything at all, right? And so if they want to keep reading traditionally published books by black authors, that's their opinion, and I love it for them. But I just can't do that. I can't. again, don't get me wrong. This is not me trying to blame them, trying to blame other Black people for my failures. This is really not. This really isn't that. And can you say that it's whining? Yeah, of course. It's a little bit of whining. I would say it's more just venting, but more than anything, it's just me acknowledging, I guess, the fact that, for better or for worse, I don't know how to appeal to Black people, to Black readers, and I just have to come to the conclusion that I've just spent so much time on it already, and it has gotten me nowhere. So I'm not going to spend any more time on it. Like I absolutely hate that. I still have a bunch of novels and pieces of work that are filled with Black people, and I'm probably going to change half of those characters over to white people. I'm still going to keep a few characters Black, but I just can't do it. It hurts more than just the regular rejection from publishers and stuff. And no, I don't even say, oh, well, those publishers are rejecting me because of racism. No, that's not something that I have literally ever said. So that is not the issue there. And I just realized that I just can't do it. I cannot do that anymore. And when I realized that, and when I felt the heaviness of that decision and the heaviness of the essential rejection, and it felt so insurmountable to me that I just that in and of itself almost felt like, well, if I'm not going to be writing about Black characters anymore, or if I'm just going to leave Black characters out of like multi-racial, multi-ethnic cast of characters, whether it's in a book or whether it's in a screenplay or what have you, then like, am I really like what am I really doing? Am I really living up to the thing that I really wanted to do? That's why I took so many months off, where it's just like I could have written a ton of stuff in that time, but I was just so demoralized about it, to where it's like, again, it's so weird that in almost everything else, not only Black people, but specifically book readers or just people who love different types of art and entertainment, and literally almost everything else, we openly embrace something that is done indie or something that is done outside of the conglomerates and all that stuff. But for some reason, when it comes to books, it's like, oh, no. It has to be traditional, because only traditional is good. Only traditional is acceptable, yada, yada, yada. But it's like Colleen Hoover, she started as a self-published. It's a lot of people who started self-published or indie, and they actually make it. And I'm just looking around and I'm just like, it kind of upset me, mainly because of the fact that it seemed like I knew what to do and how to appeal to white people, but I didn't know how to do that for Black people. And that essentially the only way I could do that for Black people is to basically be famous already. Like be famous already because Black people love fame, I guess, or something. It just felt like the whole process just made me less enthused. And so that was it. That was the one of the biggest reasons as to why I was, in January of 2022, I was just about ready to give up. I was like, man, I just don't know if I can do this anymore. I just don't know. I've written in all genres before. I've taken a lot of my stuff off of the market. And again, like I say, I know I completely understand that success is not in any way, shape, or form guaranteed to anybody, especially within this particular industry, the massive entertainment industry as a whole. And like I said, nobody owes me anything. Crybaby, all that stuff, whining, I don't want to do all that. But it's just a certain kind of thing. You know what? Never mind. I'm going to end this video right here because my brain is getting a little foggy and a little tired. So, hey everybody. So while I don't have an official sign off yet, I guess I should do the whole please like, comment, share, and if you so desire and you want to see more, subscribe. But more importantly, I will ask that you please go and purchase one of my books. They are mostly ebooks, and pretty much they are all under $10. See if any of my work is actually any good, if it lives up to any of the things that I'm talking about here on my channel, specifically with the entertainment industry videos. So please go purchase my books. All of my links are down below. Thank you.